Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 7th meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors. We've got agendas in the back and sign in. I'm joined in the meeting room by Mr. Corey Meyer, Mr. Ted Gallagher, Mr. Mike Thornton, and Mr. Roger Brutt. If you will join me, pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will start with public comment for any non-agenda items. Is there anyone here for public comment of non-agenda items? Is there any comment coming online? Moving on, just want to announce we will be having an executive session immediately following this meeting to discuss some potential legal and personnel matters. We'll move on to item 4, the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the April 7th meeting agenda, approval of the minutes of the Monday, March 17th regular meeting. Item C, a request for financial security release, campus shop, 1625 Old Philadelphia Pike. Township engineer is recommending a full release of those funds. Item D, a request for financial security release, Lap Ridge Phase 2 subdivision. Again, the township engineer is recommending a full release. Item E, a time extension for township review and action for Chick-fil-A, 2467 Lincoln Highway East. Applicants offering another 180 days of additional time. And this is their second application for this project. We have item F, the time extension for township review and action for the King project, 24 Willow Road. Applicants offering extension on 2nd, 2025. This is the first time extension for this. Item B, time extension offer for township review and action. Weiss Gas and Go 1631 Old Philly Pike. Applicants offering 90-day extension, which would take us through July 6, 2025. This is their third such extension. Item H, approval to pay all invoices from all funds totaling $369,768.39. Two significant items is $17,776. Which is our annual contribution to the Lancaster County Drug Task Force, which is calculated at approximately $1 per capita. We have $10,000 to the state workers' compensation installation payment.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Second. Motion by Mr. Gallagher, second by Mr. Meyer. Is there any board or public comment for these items? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. We have no old business. Moving on to item 6A under new business, a resolution for a DEP sewer planning module for foods mulch land development and 2417 244 Philadelphia Pike.
The board has actually taken action on the planning module for this location previously. However, it was dated prior to completed prior to the county planning department's review date, and so DEP is requiring that this be repeated and redone. So the project, the original project is down at the property on the south side of Old Philadelphia Pike, just east of what is currently Leola Elementary School. The barn there, going to be demolished in the mulch. Recommended approval.
Motion to approve the resolution regarding Fitz mulch land development plan 2417-2448.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Meyer, second by Mr. Rutt. Any public comment or board comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstention, the motion passes. Item 7, supervisor discussion items. We have discussion on our ordinance update for a fee in lieu of parkland provisions.
Since the time of your last meeting, staff was able to obtain the data from the county on the assessed values in the township, all the assessed values. So we have the total for the whole township. We have the total for all tax exempt properties, and we have the total for all properties that are in the township's ag zone. So based upon how we understand the board's discussion, you wanted to know what the average per acre value would be in the township for all properties that are not tax exempt and not in the ag zone. So we calculated that, and that average comes to just a little over $100,000 per acre. Again, this is based upon assessed values updated by the common level ratio. Tara provided a spreadsheet display showing those calculations. In terms of the ordinance, the board had been discussing various options on how to prepare the ordinance amendment to make this process slightly different than it is today, and to hopefully make it more of a calculation than a negotiation each time. So the display also shows what the amounts would have been for certain projects had this per acre average been used for those projects. Anything else you want to know about that, Tara?
No, that sums it up.
The discussion here is, so I think we've dialed in everything else on this ordinance amendment. So we sort of have two options which we've been discussing. So we have, we'll call it option A, which is the defining fair market value as the average per value acre, which we have here, or the other option, we'll call it option B, which is the other way of determining the fair market value, which is in the comment here on the document, which is the developer will provide information, copy of the agreement for sale, and has purchased the land in the past 2 years. So basically, whatever they paid for it is the fair market value, or an appraisal of the property acceptable to the township. And that would be less any improvements to determine the fair market value. So we were able to calculate what the, so I asked, Tara did a fantastic job just running this back a few, so we have a little bit of historical context to say, all right, if we change this, how would it affect those in the past? So we could choose one of those. If we chose either of them, another lever we could do is we could also adjust the required number of acres. If we felt like the current fee is a little too much or too little, we could adjust that up. So this is sort of where we have our collective gut saying, all right, what's a fair amount to charge a developer for a fee in lieu of parkland? And Any thoughts or discussion from any of the board members?
I think just comparing the two options, option A, straightforward calculation, but it may not be perfect to the exact property that comes in front of us, right? It's an average, right? So by definition, not one property is going to be on that average likely, right? There's 50% going to be more, 50% going to be less. Option B, to me, is more accurate fair market value. But it puts more work on the applicant, puts more work on, I would say, us as well to, agree that that number is correct. You agree with that comment of option A versus option B? I mean,
Yeah. So option A is sort of same for everybody.
Sure.
Option B is if you get a good deal,
yeah,
you pay a smaller fee.
yeah,
If you're paying a higher dollar amount for the land, you're going to pay a higher fee. Whereas, or you have it all comes down to what you can negotiate,
right.
purchasing the property to do the development.
Yeah, and I would say there's diverse stock of real estate in East Lampeter. I mean, that's the other issue I have with just option A is that in some cases, 100,000 is a great deal, and probably 50% it's a bad deal, right? Like, I mean, that's math, right?
And it also comes into what are the, so if you're, depending on where you're then buying the land becomes becomes your goal of, hey, I'm looking for the cheap land to do the development versus the more expensive. And the more expensive is going to be where it's already been sold a couple times and there's infrastructure. So in our area, so this goes into, if we want people to, looking at some of the maps, if we want people to redevelop where we have roads and infrastructure, that's going to be your more expensive land. That's where those developers would prefer an average. If folks are, hey, we're going to try to get as far away from that as possible to get the cheaper land, they would like option B.
Yeah, not to go total math nerd on you, but what we calculated was an average, not a median value.
Yeah, it's a pure average, not a median. I would be interested in the median.
We could develop that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's enough quantity, it's normal, so the median and the average will be very close. So
If you look at the median, the other one is we could adjust that level. The required amount of acres compared to that, whatever that dollar, if it's 100,000, we can say, all right, instead of what's our current acreage?
0.027 per residential, 2.5% in the non-residential property.
That sort of worked under, so option C is the way we've been doing it, which is just the assessed land value, which is going to be lower. So current 0.027 times a lower number gets you our current,
typically, I would say assessed value is typically lower than the sale price. Yeah.
so either one of our current option A and B is going to bump up what people are paying. The other question is we could adjust that 0.027. If we still think that's cheap, we could say, all right, it's 0.02 or 0.017.
We had previously provided kind of a survey that we did of the other ordinance provisions that exist around the county. And although I don't have it in front of me right now, my recollection is that 0.027 is not higher than everybody else's. Probably lower than most.
But are they going off of how they calculated the essentially their market, the value of that is different?
Right. Most of, again, by recollection, most of them are fair market value based upon the sale price or an appraisal. There's only one that I'm aware of that does it based upon an average per acre value. The other thing I would say in terms of how you look at this is that The sale price for a property that's being redeveloped is not going to reflect just the land. So if you're looking at a sale price for that property, you're going to have to somehow back out the value of the buildings that are on the property. So in that case, you're probably always going to be looking at requiring an appraisal to be done.
Yeah, true.
To get you to that point.
Should be an extra cost to the developer to do. On a larger project, like whatever is, what's an assessment these days? $1,500. It's been a while since I've done it.
An appraisal?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could spend a couple $1,000s on appraisal.
So some folks are paying currently fees where it's a smaller project. If they're paying a fee of $5,000, you're almost putting another couple thousand each time. If they're now a bigger redevelopment, it's a wash. It's pretty simple. Yeah, because if the other townships are either doing, what's the other one that does the average?
Westland Peter.
So Westland Peter does an average.
Just so you have it.
Okay.
What's some of the other, because it appears that the folks who are trying to do a fair market value have a lower acreage requirement. I mean, because those two numbers will then have a smaller fee in lieu of, as opposed to our higher acreage requirement currently going off of the assessed value.
I didn't write the memo, but I think it says that we have one of the lowest acreage values.
Yeah, that's right. The average that we developed out in the survey was that of the other ordinances, it's 0.048 acres per new dwelling unit. And ours is 0.027, so it's substantially lower than the average of everybody else's.
Are any of them using the common level ratio?
Well, again, the only one that's using the average assessment is Westland Peters. So exactly how they're calculating it, I don't know. I think the ordinance just says average per acre value is established by the board at the beginning of each year, based upon assessed values in the community. The other ones are, again, all fair market value based upon either the sale price or appraisal.
What's the board's wishes? Do we want to pursue trying to dial in sort of our average fair market value, or do we want to pursue doing the developer either is the sale price of the underlying land or an assessment to get that fair market value?
If I may, the other thing I just want to remind the board is that these dollars, when they're a fee in lieu of it's paid, have to be used for parkland. You know, it's either acquiring land for park or improving parkland. It just doesn't go into the general fund. It's for parks.
Could that be so when developers are putting in a sort of public, say, multimodal pathway to connect, they count that as sort of a public improvement, which deducts from that. Could we use those fees in lieu of parkland to help with those similar connections? So there's going to be gaps as we go through this where there's sections of multimodal that we'd like to connect that are already in place. Could we use our fee in lieu of for those types of public improvements that would connect people to parks?
Yeah, I think as long as it's got some recreational function to it, it's not just a transportation facility. Yes, I believe
So access to those park facilities.
or other public amenities. I'm just thinking on the streetscape plan, there's sections where there's, if all the current developments that are in progress happen, we'll have a large chunk of our multimodal pathway done, but there's going to be gaps where we might have to wait 20 years before someone redevelops that property, or we could use some of these funds to make those connections ourselves.
Right. All the ordinance speaks to is that the funds have to be used for a park or recreational purpose. You don't have to make a decision with each development exactly what you're going to use the money for, but it's got to be for a park or recreation purpose.
Now was what? For opening this back up.
Make it so it's a simpler calculation so that it's not coming as a negotiation each time.
So we have experienced that here where there, there's a lot that could be put in. Someone's interpreting that in such a way that there are multiple points that they want to negotiate. We wanted to simplify it, so we're not saying increase or decrease or motivate developers or anything like that. It was really about simplification.
Clarification and simplification.
So that they and their engineer can read that and go, I know what the dollar amount is that I need to pay. And then we do have, in the section 2, we've got options if they are trying to do something that is, providing more density, more affordable housing. We could then discount if they're doing some of the things that we want them to.
They can do their calculation, but also if they come to us and say, we're gonna do this, this, and this, then it's a negotiation across the table to some degree.
Yeah, only on the items that we've outlined in here. Because
It doesn't mean they won't come to us with those new ideas, but that's right.
Yeah, the board has, the authority.
But it is one of the goal is to set the expectation up front with the developer as opposed to them knowing, hey, I can interpret this a couple ways. I'm going to interpret it in the way that's most favorable to me. That eats up time here.
Yeah, this probably, whatever you do, is going to set the ceiling on the amount that they would offer as a fee in lieu. And then if they want to have discussion about it, they would expect the number to go down from there, I would think.
We're in between option A and I realize there's an option C as well, but I can't.
Just to get the improvements.
Right, true, yeah.
You wanted to see the mode.
Median, yeah,
Most often occurring or?
median,
Median.
yeah, 50th percentile. Yeah, because that'll throw, any outliers will, depending on what the data looks like.
Because part of this is, and this is where you start to look at some of the other townships in their development pattern. If we're wanting to create, as part of our housing plan, more housing where people who work here can also live here, then we want to encourage development where we already have existing infrastructure. If you look at some of the other townships that have higher fee, they have less housing that's like that. It usually ends up being very large houses on large parcels and there's not many of them. So if we want the type of development pattern we're seeing in those other townships, then we could copy them more closely. If we want something that's encouraging development that we want, which is folks who live here can also work here, then I would recommend we go with something a little more favorable and flexible for the density pieces. I like that we put in there. That's really good. But if someone wants to come in and put in a fancy subdivision with McMansions, they're going to be paying a lot more. But if they're coming in saying, I'm going to rehab this property, I'm going to put up some apartments where families can come in who have jobs in the area, then we've got more flexibility.
I guess the other thing I would just offer, especially for the newer members, is that the original intention of this, way back in the early mid-90s, when it was first put in the ordinance, was to recognize that new development does, in addition to putting pressure on transportation systems and water and sewer systems, it also puts pressure on park and recreation systems. And this was a way to get development to help pay for providing park and recreation, just like they were doing, transportation improvements to address the so it's sort of conceptually the same idea.
Any additional thoughts on either more information you'd like to see or a direction? Do you lean A? Do you lean B? Trying to get some guidance for staff of what's your thoughts are.
Data, but I could go to option A, but I would love to see the data first.
I agree with Corey.
Okay, we'll get you the data for your next meeting, and yeah, this was not in a formal. Or act on anything, we just need this direction, so.
That's why I brought up the original. I think A is where we were going. It was almost, with simple.
For feedback. Is there any, and if there's anything now that anyone wants to bring up, we can talk, but if anyone has any suggestions for later meetings, feel free to email the staff. If there's nothing else, we'll jump right into action items under 8. 8A, authorization to sign a grant agreement with the Fish and Boat Commission for Gibbons Park.
So I think we had informed the board that we had been told that the grant was awarded in the amount of $75,050. This grant does require a match, and we've applied for multiple other grants in hopes of those grants providing a match. But sort of in the worst case scenario that we don't get other funds, the township would be obligated to match the 75,000 to make the project go. What's in this project is not the full extent of improvements on the west side of Gibbons Park. It's just the entrance, the parking area, and the canoe kayak launch. So it's a limited amount of development, but it's sort of the first step of getting more activity there. If you do accept the grant agreement for approval, the project could not be constructed this year. We've got too many, final engineering permitting stuff that we'd have to go through. So it's probably more likely a 26 or 27 project, and the grant agreement have a limitation on it that the project has to be done by the end of 27.
Worst case, 75,000, 26, 27. Best case, if we get the matching grant that covers nearly all of it. Or
If we get the CFA dollars, we'll have plenty to cover it. But we won't know that answer
until later. Right.
So the match is accepting the grant means that we are on the hook for the other 75 if we don't find it in some other form. And you would know about the other forms you've applied for now, not until the fall.
Correct. And
It doesn't mean you can't keep applying if you found something else.
correct. We would just need to get the project done by the end of 27. We can use fees from fees in lieu of that are paid by developers into the park and rec capital reserve to use those dollars as the match to this if we have to. Those are considered township dollars. So
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize to sign the grant agreement with the Fish and Boat Commission regarding Gibbons Park for $75,050 with the understanding that we will be needing to match that amount and complete the project by 2027.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Thornton, a second by Mr. Rutt. Any discussion or public comment? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed or abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item 8B, sewage enforcement officer fee schedule change.
As board members might remember, the board named a new sewage enforcement officer at the beginning of the year. And that is our township engineering firm, David Miller Associates. They have a different structure of their fees than what we've been using. And so we like to have their fee schedule. These are fees that are paid by the property owner who's involved in whatever SEO issue they're having, whether it's a malfunctioning system or conventional design or whatever comes through to him. We don't have a lot of this activity. This is a pretty small number. I think last year we had maybe 2. Okay. So.
You will that I was one of them.
1 of 3.
1 of 3. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the new fee schedule.
Make the motion that the board approves the new BMA's SEO fees as listed. It's not a date on here,
Motion by Mr. Rutt, second by Mr. Thornton. Any public comment or board discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Motion passes. Item 9, manager's report. Guys, Ralph.
Thank you. Following up on your action at your last meeting to award the paving contract, there were some ADA sidewalk adjustments that had not been included in the bidding that was done that will have to be completed in order for those roads to be paved and completed. So staff went out and sought quotes from a number of contractors to do that work. At least one, Tara has more new information, but at least one of them is low enough that it's well under the requirement to pre-bid. So, and in addition, applying that contract now to the amount of the paving bids that you awarded, we're still going to be well under the total paving this year. So I just want to report on it moving forward because it doesn't require any bidding or anything of that sort. The other thing I want to mention was that the township spring forward. We normally do April 1st. And our police officer candidates is ongoing. And finally, just want to report that we've implemented the first steps in the new OLS, the online disposal system ordinance that the board adopted earlier this year. So the first part of that was to register contractors who provide those services within the township. And we already have a few that have submitted their registration. So we're going forward with that. The next part of that will be to actually send letters out to the first phase of or portion of the township where we'll be telling those property owners who have on-lot disposal systems that they need to comply with the ordinance and get their systems maintenance completed and provide us with the information so that we have record of it. The ordinance does provide provisions that, if they just had it done, they can provide us that information. They don't have to redo it when they get their letter. So that program is underway.
Okay. Any questions for staff? All right, any additional public comment? Mr. Meyer, second by Mr. Thornton. Public comment. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed or abstentions? The ayes have it.